But welcome, as we said, to another amazing coffee conversation. On today's episode, we're going to be sharing our insights with you from the Shamanic Reiki retreat that we just attended with Little Tribe Shell member
Kim Boyle.
Kim Boyle.
She's awesome.
Amazing. I got to meet her last year when we did a drum making workshop with her here in Bozeman, and Christine's known her for quite some time, but this was our first time coming to one of her retreats, right?
Yes, I haven't been to one.
Yeah.
And I love her in the fact that she's like, I'm doing a retreat. This is the price. And that's the extent.
That's all the information you get. So we didn't know.
I had no idea what we were going to expect. I was like, Kim's doing it. I'm sure it's going to be great. I have no idea where this retreat center is. I don't know anything about it. I don't know what's included. I don't know what kind of food they're going to have. I don't know what the itinerary is. Like, we went in very blind, and I was pleasantly surprised. It was good. It was really good. Not only was the container held really in a real sacred way, but we also had some really deep and profound experiences that were instigated by this retreat. So we want to share about our experiences with you and how it felt to be a part of this Shamanic Reiki retreat. And maybe at some point we'll do something similar in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. So know, if you're watching this recording or listening to this recording on our podcast, this will have some visual elements to it. We're going to be sharing some of the things that we made and we received during our time at this retreat. So if you're listening to this on our podcast and you want to see these things, be sure to head over to our YouTube channel to take a look. But I'm so excited to dive in. And I think one of the things that we really wanted to start with and mark this conversation off with was how beautiful it was to step back into the student role. Because as teachers, as facilitators, as educators, as shamanic Reiki practitioners, so often we're in a space where we are facilitating and holding space and giving. And it was so amazing and really profound, I think, to be able to step back into the student role. And I think it was such a beautiful reminder of how we are constantly learning, right? We are lifelong learners, but also the humility that it takes to be able to step into a space that you're familiar with, right? Because it was a shamanic retreat, but it was with a tribe and with a way of viewing shamanism that we weren't super familiar with. And so it was this really beautiful experience of being able to stand tall in our own knowledge and our own understanding, while also acknowledging these are things I don't know, and here are these amazing people that I can ask and that I can show up with authentically and say, you have wisdom that I don't. Are you willing to share? And I think that was one of my favorite parts of the retreat, was just these little conversations here and there where it's like, if there was a question that you had or an insight you were looking for, there was someone else in this group of 18 amazing women who would have that answer. Absolutely. Or that insight.
Yeah. And I think that's it. Like, I feel like it was all very open-minded, and they would meet you where you're at. Like, they wouldn't necessarily, the purpose of the retreat wasn't educational, which was also really lovely. It was really lovely to not go to a conference, not go and sit at workshops and learn things. It was very much experiential. Let's have a drum, like, let's journey together. Let's make a drum circles and create these shamanic masks. And it was very feeling into all of the things, and just watch the participants move through 48 hours of transformation and really have a sacred intention to begin with, and hold that intensity of that intention as we dove in together. And it was just really incredibly beautiful to watch these women shift and heal just from the events, and not events, but the participation in all of the offerings.
And I think it was so beautiful because it really was this, I loved that as soon as we stepped into the space, right? We arrived in this gorgeous plot of land with this beautiful house and such amazing energy. I mean, fairy villages everywhere, monoliths around the property, gorgeous trees and like, it was so gorgeous. And it's like, we came into this sacred space, and the first thing we did was sit down and have a ceremony where we shared what's your intention for the week. And we each went around clockwise in the shamanic tradition and just shared aloud, what's your intention? What are you hoping for to experience in this weekend? And it was so beautiful to see how once we put those words out, once we were able to share that intention, how spirit just kind of wove its way through that experience to bring all of those intentions to fruition. And there was this one experience in particular that I was so humbled and honored to get to experience. One of the participants was working to heal through grief, and by the end of the workshop, her energy and her face was just completely different. And it was just so astonishing to see how, when you get a group of women who are, or even a group of souls who are dedicated to healing, to sharing, to connecting, to experiencing the magic in life again, and you put them in a space for, it was only 48 hours, but gosh, it felt like a week.
It did. It totally
and when you put them in that container, that healing just happens. It's just natural. And I think it was part of it was a really beautiful reminder of the fact that at our core and our true nature, we are healed and we are whole and we are complete. And one of the participants was sharing at the end of the workshop how beautiful it was to be able to be witnessed by the other people and to see herself reflected back through the eyes of so many other women. And I think that is such an incredibly healing experience, because it reveals parts of you that you forget about sometimes, right? Because you're constantly living through your own lens and your own experience. And when you're surrounded by these women who have these insights and have these perceptions and are so willing to be open and present, it's just a reminder of that fullness that you have in yourself that I think it's easy to get disconnected from. So that was a really beautiful takeaway, I think, for me, was looking at how when we set our intention and we open that up in a really sacred container, that things just happen. It has no choice but to unfold and evolve in a way that's really healing.
Absolutely. And so, for my intention was very much to just be there, be witness, to step into new beginnings and expansion. And everyone's intention was just silently honored all weekend. Like, we didn't have to talk about it. There was a talking stick. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a support group. It wasn't a place to have conversations necessarily when we were in that sacred space. It was about being witnessed and heard, and then moving into a sacred activity. And the sacred activity for this weekend was to do shamanic drumming and then do shamanic journey work to discover your shamanic self. And so if you don't know what shamanic journeying is, briefly, that could take up the whole podcast. But briefly, what shamanic journey is basically utilizing the drum beat to step into non-ordinary reality, into a spiritual plane where you can recognize your higher self, where you can recognize your soul's calling, you can recognize whatever your intention is. And so the intention for the shamanic journey was to journey to your shamanic self and see what would be revealed to you. So everyone's shamanic self is going to be different. Like, that shamanic self is that identity of who you are as this healer, as this being of wisdom, of this information that's coming from well beyond normal reality, right? And so each participant at the retreat already knew how to shamanic journey. So this wasn't a training. This was people of advanced practitioners who all had training along some point to know how to journey. And so it was really lovely to be also in a group of people who already knew how to shamanic journey, so that we could just get right into it, go right into the meat of it. And so we laid down, we listened to the drum beat, we set our intentions to meet our shamanic selves, and watched how it was revealed to us individually. And then at the end, we didn't share, which I'm very much let's share right after the shamanic journey. Like, I love doing that, but it was so intentional. we weren't meant to share at that point. It was like, hold on to the vision, journal it down, and then we're going to create a masterpiece, a piece of art that reflects your journey. And so that was kind of the focus of the shamanic retreat, was really to discover this inner truth of who you are from this lens. And what does it say about you? How does it reveal some truth about you, and how you're going to share that with the world?
And so we took all of that, and we took this information that we got from our shamanic journey, and our prompt for day 2, kind of the meat of the retreat, was to make your shamanic mask. And so a shamanic mask is traditionally, I highly encourage you to Google these. There are some gorgeous images. If you guys have ever read the book Shamanism by, I'm going to say his name wrong, but Mircea Eliade, his original text has this gorgeous picture of a shamanic mask on it. But they were these masks that shamans would use to call on a specific spirit or a specific being or a specific aspect of themselves in their shamanic practice. And it was this idea that when you put on the mask, you're stepping into this healing work and into this healing space. And so it was very intentional. It's almost like a space holder for the shaman to be able to incorporate into their shamanic work with their spirit team, with their power animal. And so a lot of times you'll see shamanic masks that do look like animals from shamans who would embody their power animal, or you see things that embody different aspects of each shaman. So a shaman might have multiple masks, depending on which ceremony or which healing space he was stepping into. And so for us, our intention was, like Christine said, to look at our shamanic self as a whole. Like, who are we when we step into this shamanic space? How does our energy shift and change? And so the entirety of day 2 was focused on, then how can we take this vision and bring it to life in a mask, so that when we walk away, we have not only this piece of art, right, that can go around your home, but also this tool that can be used as needed to help you embody your shamanic self. And so this is where visuals are important. So feel free to hop on over to our YouTube if you're on our podcast. But we were able to make our shamanic masks, and hold yours up. And it was what I loved about it is that we all started with these paper templates. They were just these plain white paper templates for our masks. And by the end, there's a photo that we posted in our Reiki Cafe community Facebook group that you can go look at. By the end, there were 18 completely wildly different and unique masks. And it was so amazing because after we finished, and we'll share a little bit about the symbolism of our masks and how they came through, but after we had finished making them, we sat in a circle and everybody shared the story behind their mask. And there were so many times where somebody would share and the entire circle would go, "Oh, but it looks like you." And I loved that, because it clearly it doesn't, right? Like, if you hold, it doesn't look like your human self, but it just looks like your that power. Person's essence and their power. And it was incredible and amazing to just watch that and have this physical representation of who we are in our spirit, in our soul, in our true power, when we're owning that and we're stepping into this space where we're communing with the spirits and we're connected with the directions and we're in our power. How does that manifest? And so I think that was a really beautiful experience. But do you want to share the story of your mask?
Sure. So I love part of this is like, I'm no artist, like that's the thing, that the point isn't to be a good artist and like make art. It's to find a way to represent the reflection of the shamanic journey that you were on and how you saw yourself. And so mine was very unique, and the fact that I saw many faces, and then I had to include them all in one mask. So the idea of like journeying to your shamanic self, well, I saw past life after past life after past life after past life of all of the shamanic roles I have been in the past, whether I was running with the wolves or I was with saber-toothed tiger or with Abuela, like just I had peacock magic at one point. Like there was just lots of layers. And at the end, it really was about moving into the fire. And that really resonates with me. Like we were talking this morning about which chakra I resonate most with. And we agreed that like it's crown and solar plexus. Like I'm very much about using fire magic in a way of healing and transformation. And so part of my shamanic journey was entering into the fire, watching all of the participants in this group walk through the fire and pass through it. But I stayed in the fire. I became the fire. This elemental magic was the core truth of my shamanic self. It's being the fire, using that fire to help others in their transformational healing. And so I was like, how am I going to
I'm gonna get fire on a paper mask.
exactly, how am I going to get fire on a paper mask? And I'm like, well, what elements really are showing up? And so I was like, okay, well, clearly it's got to be yellow, right? We got to bring in the actual color. But on top of that, I was like, I want to still bring in the elements of all these other faces that I've worn through my past lives. And so I did my best to kind of honor that. And so you can see on my mask, there's fangs that represent the wolf energy, as well as the saber-toothed tiger. There's this little indigenous gem that sits at the third eye with Abuela's magic. And, you know, I had to get really creative. Like, so we had a lot of different arts and craft materials. And I think that in and of itself can be a shamanic journey. Like you're stepping towards all of these arts and craft materials and going, what's calling to my soul to help me bring this representation through? And so I'm grabbing feathers and I'm grabbing beads and I'm grabbing gems and I'm grabbing stones and I'm grabbing shells and I'm grabbing these pieces that felt in alignment. But in the end, I was ready for the glue gun. I was in line for a long time for the glue gun. It was the whole thing about the glue gun. But I was standing in front of a bowl of Werther's Originals caramels. And I was like, that's the gold I need. I need that gold. And so I unwrapped about a dozen of these Werther Originals and cut out the right shape and, you know, put it on the mask with the hot glue gun and it melted. And then I was like, okay, but I needed that for this crown area. And you wouldn't even know that those were candy wrappers. But it really goes to show that you can use anything. It's not about finding like the perfect thing. It's about getting creative and letting that magic come through, because it's all symbolic. Your mask is symbolic, so that when you put it on, you're bringing that symbology and that metaphor into the present reality of when you're working with it. And so for me, I felt like it really came together, and I was really happy. I was really satisfied with it, and really wanted to bring in some of the texture on the paint and a little bit of this blue along the eyes as that peacock magic. There was no peacock feathers, or she would be wearing some of that too. And I felt really, it felt really powerful. And even to put it on, to recognize this is part of who I am. This is part of who I am as a fire elementalist. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I love that. We were talking about one of the things that I had gotten in my journey when we went to find our shamanic selves is this idea that when we're putting on the mask, when we're stepping into this space of ceremony, it's stepping into the spirit world. And in the spirit world, everything is metaphor and everything is symbolism. And so when you put on the mask, it's this act of recognizing yourself as no longer human, but in a space where you acknowledge yourself as the metaphor, that everything about who you are and what you do and how you move and how you act is a metaphor. And it's part of that symbolism that comes alive in the spirit world. And so a lot of my mask messages came through in that way of metaphor, because for me, it was very much this message of when you are doing your shamanic work in this lifetime, it really is about letting go of that human persona, letting go of your mind, letting go of your ego, and really just becoming one with the spirits and one with nature, so that there is none of that separation. And I've recently been reading The Way of the Shaman by Michael Herner. If you haven't read it, I highly recommend. And one of the things that he talks about in this book that I absolutely love is how, to a shamanic practitioner, the shamanic state of consciousness, aka when you're journeying, when you're interacting with the spirit world, is just as real as ordinary consciousness or waking consciousness, like we're in right now as we're talking with you guys. And this idea that what you see in a shamanic journey is as real as what you experience in physical waking life. And I love that idea because I think it's so true. And I think it's one of the things that from the outside looking in is the hardest to grasp, right? This idea that all of these magical, mystical, empowering things that we're experiencing, they're not just imagination, they're not just made up, they're actually happening in a different realm, in a different state of consciousness. And in order to experience those as real, we have to allow ourselves to experience that state of consciousness, to transition into that state of consciousness. And in order to get there, we can't bring our human selves. That has to be let go. We have to just become one with the spirit. And so that was a lot of what came through with my mask. And so there's a lot of symbolism in the symbols that I have on here. So there's half the mask is red and half of it is brown. And that red side was very much that like passion and drive and motivation and that ability to move forward and have forward momentum. And so there's on the red side, there's this, what looks like an arrow going down from the eye across the cheek. And my guides were very much saying that like, this is symbolic of like that tier of insight that shamans have, the ability to look at and witness war and famine and pain and illness and all of these things and use it as, again, with that red color, this drive to share that insight, to speak our truth, to have that purpose and passion of healing and being prompted forward in our work through that. And so then there's this line that the arrow is pointing to that goes from the cheek down towards the mouth. And that was really this ability to then take this drive and take this insight and use it to speak that truth, to share that wisdom, to use our words for healing, which I think is such a powerful aspect of shamanic work that I don't know that we talk about as often, is this idea of, we all know that our words are powerful, but I think in a shamanic sense, our words are, like Christine said, they're magic, or they're, what a lot of native tribes would call medicine. And I love that everything is medicine. When you connect with a power animal, when you connect with an emotion, when you connect with a direction, you're opening yourself up to receive that medicine. And I love that way of looking at the world. And so then here on this brown side, the brown side was very much reception and being in ceremony and moving with grace and being open and just being witnessed while also witnessing. And so there's this X on the forehead that was like that mark of shamanic wisdom, that ability to see beyond the physical reality into what's beyond. And then there's this beautiful white circle here by the ear. That's that ability that shamans have to fully listen to the person in front of them, whether that's spiritually listening or actually physically listening to their story, but being really open, having an open mind and heart. And then there's a dash here by the chin that's taking that wisdom and taking what you listen to and bringing it down into your heart to integrate and to acknowledge. And I think of all the marks on the mask, this little tiny line is my favorite, because it's that idea of when we have to integrate everything and bring it into our heart. And it's that acknowledgement that everything that we experience in the external world is a reflection of ourselves, but it also gives us an opportunity to be changed and to be transformed and to be part of this continual evolution that is life, and bringing it into our heart and centering it there and grounding it there. And then there are these two white lines running all the way down the mask that represent that duality of the shamanic state of consciousness and the ordinary state of consciousness. And there's this one white line that runs just over the center of the mouth. That's that ability to walk between the two realms and share the truth of each of them fully. And I think that's something that I will always be striving for. If anybody's interacted with any of our students, you'll probably have heard me talk about capital T truth versus lowercase t truth. And it's this idea that I have that there is this one great universal capital T truth that is an experience. And so when we try and bring it to the mind, this place where we're trying to understand it, we're inherently going to lose some of that truth, because we have to bring it down to a place where the mind can understand. We have to take an experience and bring it to the level of a thought. And that's really, really difficult. And so we all end up with our own personal lowercase t truths, these things that resonate for us, these ways that we see the world that are incredibly true and real for us and our experience. And I think that white line to me represents that constant striving to take my lowercase t truth and have it be as representative of that capital T truth as it possibly can be. And I don't think that's something that I'll ever achieve, but it's something that I hope I never stop striving for in my practice.
Yeah, absolutely. It was a very powerful experience for all the participants, and the wide range of what came through for everyone was just a powerful piece. So if you're a shamanic journeyer, like, I highly recommend doing this journey and this practice of like really identifying. And I too know many people who have made masks or other pieces of art in a shamanic way. And it's so profound. It's so insightful, because everything, just how many symbols came through just for Izzy's piece, it's each one is a powerful piece of it, and mine with all of its different layers and components. And so you learn a lot about yourself, and you learn a lot about your truth. And I feel like the more we learn about who we are and what kind of practitioners we want to be, the stronger we are about moving into this world, this reality, and helping and supporting others. And so that, yeah, I'm so grateful, like going in completely unaware about what we were going to do for the weekend, and to have this be the focus. I was like, yay.
And I think it was such a beautiful part of it too, because I don't know that we would have had the same experience if we had gone in with an expectation of what was going to happen. And it's even in the little things of just, there were so many synchronicities that happened throughout the workshop, and these really magical, beautiful moments that were just there because we were open to them, and we didn't have an expectation of what was going to happen. And it ranged from incredibly profound to like little funny experiences that we never thought to have. So for example, little side tangent here before we get back on topic, is the leader of the retreat is very connected to Sasquatch energy. She loves to work with Sasquatch's medicine, as she would call it. And Sasquatch isn't an energy that I've ever worked with. Christine and I have both been to Alaska, and Sasquatch is big up there. And so we know of it, we've heard of it, we know people who interact with it, and neither of us has really felt the call to work with it. And on a whim, one of the mornings, I went and sat down to one of the elders in the group, and we were just chit-chatting, and she happened to mention in an offhand story that when Sasquatch is ready to work with you, he gives you a marble. Like, that's how you know that Sasquatch is like seeking you. And she was telling me this because there was this really beautiful, lovely dog that I adored with my whole heart. And I think that she adored me too. And I was throwing her ball, and apparently the Sasquatch had been leaving marbles in the dog's bed because it was ready to work with the dogs. Very shamanic, very spiritual dog. And I was like, oh, that's really sweet. And I didn't think anything of it. And then 36 hours later, we're getting ready to leave, and we're on this dirt road, this like gravel road where our car was parked. And I go to step in the car, and I look down, and there's a marble by my toe. Like, there's no reason that a marble should be there. I hadn't seen any other marbles at the retreat. It was perfectly placed on my toe, like it had just rolled up to it. I hadn't stepped on it, it hadn't moved, it was just there. And I was like, well, apparently Sasquatch energy is ready. And so it was little things like that where it was. And I think that is one of my main remembrances from this weekend, is that everything can be as profound as you want it to be. You can either have an incredibly powerful and magical and profound experience, and that's a beautiful thing, or you can keep it in your mind. It can be very intellectual, and you can think it all through, and it can be logical, and that in and of itself is a beautiful experience, right? There's no judgment here, but it was just this reminder that free will that we have, that ability to choose, we can use it to choose the magic, and to choose the alignment, and to choose to be open to those synchronicities and those profound moments, whether it's, really, really profound, like some of the things we experience in our meditations, or it's this little magical moment of finding this marble and knowing what it means because I had happened to have a conversation about it the previous day. And I think just those little, we have a student who calls them the Hansel and Gretel bread trail of the universe, of just like those little breadcrumbs that the universe leaves you. And one of those is on your mask. I was thinking about this earlier. I was looking at it. And what I love about her mask in particular is we're in this process of really working through as a team and feeling into what does the divine feminine energy really mean and really feel like. And I love her mask because I think it's this beautiful example of all the different facets of the divine feminine. There's that fierceness and that warrior nature and that fire and that passion, but then there's also that grace and that beauty and that crown and that mark on the third eye and these beautiful peacock, almost like eyeliner wings that are just like stepping into that grace and that beauty. And that was another element of the retreat that I loved, was the emphasis that Kim had in a lot of her morning prayers on, may I always walk in beauty. And I thought that was such a beautiful way of explaining how shamanism works, is that ability to see the beauty and the magic in all things. And I feel like that's something that really came through in your mask as well.
Yes, I love it. And the beauty just showed up everywhere. And it was, we had to get up early in the morning because solstice in Montana means that sunrise is really early, sunset is really late. And so we were getting up at about 5:45 for morning prayers in the morning to watch and witness grandfather son come up. And in doing so, really seeing those energy beams and just knowing the potent medicine available. And so we would be holding our tobacco, the sacred medicine, and whispering our intentions, our blessings, our hopes and beauties, and then blowing that into nature at the completion of the sunrise. And most people know I'm not like, I like my sleep. I really like sleep. And so I'm not necessarily like, I don't necessarily stay up late and I don't necessarily get up early, like, but we were doing both because each in this indigenous way, it was important to witness the sunrise and to sing your medicine songs in the evening. And so it's all medicine. And we get to choose to honor the medicine that's being presented. It's a choice. It's a choice to wake up and honor the sunrise. It's a choice to move to your drum and drum the drum beat. Like the drum drums the drummer, and so there's medicine in that. And so how can we step into saying yes to what's readily available to us? The sunrise is available to everyone, whether that sun is coming up and over a skyscraper of skyscrapers, or it's over the mountains in which we saw them, and so the beauty is everywhere when we can honor and respect the beauty that's within all things and within nature. And it can be so fun, like this little squirrel.
Oh, I forgot about the little squirrel.
Loved everything that we were doing, would come up to the window and watch, would try to come into the house, would try to follow you on your hikes. And I was just like, hello, squirrel. Apparently you really are involved in our magic of our time together. And so things would just pop up like that. And it was just incredibly special.
And again, that's where I go back to, I love this idea of everything having medicine, because in a lot of shamanic traditions, the sun is one of the most healing powers, especially those early morning rays when the sun's just coming up, and this idea of medicine. And I think there's something in it that one of the things I really, really loved about stepping into a weekend, that everything we did was ceremony and everything we did was sacred, and there was so much intention to it, there was also a lot of humility. Is not quite the right word to use there, but I'm struggling to find a word that really encompasses this idea of that we are kind of, when we step into this space of ceremony and shamanic work, we are presenting ourselves to the divine. We are opening ourselves to, may we receive, may we be open to this, may we work in communion with this. And it's this idea of, again, I'm struggling. Do you have a better word than humility? Because I know you know what I'm trying to say here, is that idea of, that really just honoring yourself in the presence of the divine and in the presence of all of these manifestations of the divine. Because when we recognize the squirrel and the sunrise and the leaf and all of these things as representations of the divine, they become medicine in that when we open ourselves to receive them, we begin working in communion with them and in connection with them, and our energy intertwines, and it becomes a completely different healing experience. And that ability to look at everything as medicine, I think it adds to this layer of it. I think a lot of times when we talk about being on our healing journey, there's a tendency at a certain point to get stuck in the fact that we're healing. This is something I've been talking about with a lot of our advanced students lately, is this idea of when do you stop healing, and this idea that if we're constantly looking for things to heal, because we live in a universe of yeses, the universe is going to give us more things to heal. And so that's not to say that we're ever done, right? I truly don't believe that we're ever done. We're always going to continue to evolve. But I think there does come a point where the focus shifts from healing and doing this really deep work to a place where you have healed a lot of your past, and healing becomes a daily practice. It becomes being present. It becomes opening to the flow of life. It becomes listening to the universe and those whispers of here's where you go next and next and next. And so rather than healing being rooted in the past of let's heal these past experiences so that they're not holding you back, it's let's create a space where you can evolve and continue to expand into your highest self for what comes next and next and next. And I think this idea of receiving medicine for me is what I needed to be able to fully understand that shift, because then it's a continual daily practice. That sun medicine is always available. Eagles medicine is always available. And it's this idea of, can I open myself up to receive that and see what it has for me in each moment, not for a specific purpose, not because I need this thing to be healed, but simply because this is a sacred experience. And when I open myself up to it, I will be transformed. And that really subtle shift, I think, was something that for me was really profound this weekend, of being able to see that happen in a group of women where it was, some of them were still deep in that healing. And then some of them were in that experience of let's open and transform in a present way.
Yes, it feels intentional to step into that humble space of receiving. Like, medicine is available everywhere, and to go, it can be easy, it can be gentle, it doesn't have to be this hard shadow work all the time. We can let the medicine drum, the medicine wheel, the medicine labyrinth walk, like they can all feed us and shift our energies and to saying yes. And then it's like taking the blinders wider and wider until you see everything as medicine. And it's available, and all we have to do is step outside. And I love that. And I really, working with the drum medicine was really powerful over the weekend. We had so many opportunities to pull out our drums and to play the drums in an intentional healing way. So we would drum for each direction, and we would call in the directions and drum for the direction. And so the intention for that direction on an individual basis of, what do you need from the medicine of the North? What do you need from the medicine of the South? What do you need from the medicine of the East and the West? And recognizing those elements, those seasons, those from this tribal member perspective, right? And to go, it's available. And so you let the drum the drummer, you come to an open heart, and you let that vibrational healing set you on fire. Like that's very much what it feels like to me, is like, we can clear it out, but we're doing it in this gentle burning way. Like we're gently releasing it. And in doing so, we don't have to necessarily go into the details of our trauma and triggers. We can be present and allowing it to unfold, and letting that vibration heal your heart and heal your body and heal whatever is ready to shift. And that was really profound. We did 2 nights of medicine drumming, and it was phenomenal.
It was beautiful. And for me, one of the intentions, Christine was sharing her intention earlier, and one of my intentions for the retreat is, I feel like I've recently, in the past couple of weeks, had this wall of fear, just kind of, it feels like build up. be brought to my attention that's just been sitting in my body. And it's not because it's active, it's just because it was just built up and it was ready to be released. And so I was ready to let that go and step back into a space of openness and trust and fullness and magic with life. And I feel like every time we stepped into a sound healing experience, whether it was the drumming circles, which were incredible. I love drumming circles. They're one of my favorite sacred experiences. Or we had the honor of getting to facilitate 2 sound baths for the retreat. And it was like anytime we were interacting with this vibrational medicine, I walked away feeling that openness and feeling like that wall had just been dissipated, like it had just been broken through with the vibration and with that repetition. And, even just feeling that and experiencing the healing that comes from that, we can look at, a lot of studies are starting to show how the shamanic drum beat puts our brain waves in theta state and which parts of our brain light up and all these things. We can look at it from a scientific perspective, and that's all fascinating. But it's also just when we can experience it, when we can step into that space of being open to receive, I think is for us, both of us, one of our biggest takeaways is being open to receive that magic just happens. And one of my favorite insights that I feel like I'm still processing from the weekend is we were drumming and we were doing our journey. And for those of you who listen to the podcast regularly, you know that I recently did a podcast on the illusion of time and looking at, what's the definition of a second and how is that connected to energy and all of these things. And as I was listening to this drum beat, I was reminded of, in a lot of shamanic practices, they talk about the earth's heartbeat. I believe it's the Alma Mundi is the phrase for it. And it's this idea that the earth has a heartbeat, it has a rhythm, it has a movement to it. And so when we do practices like forest bathing or going on walks, our heartbeat starts to resonate with the heartbeat of the earth. And as I was listening to this drum, I was thinking about how it matches when you do a shamanic drum beat. It's faster than a second, but there's this bum, 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 like heartbeat. And how that second beat is very close to a second in time. And realizing that it's all connected. Like that drum beat represents the earth's heartbeat, which is time. Like the passing of a second is the earth's heartbeat, because this is one of the only spaces, this physical reality is the only space where time exists. Time doesn't exist in the spiritual realm. And so when we're seeing time pass, we're seeing earth's evolution and earth's life and earth's heartbeat the same way that we can witness our own. And so when we step into a shamanic space, even outside of theta brainwaves and beautiful experiences and all of these things, it's also we're keeping time with the earth. We're connecting ourselves to that heartbeat so that when we step into a spiritual space, we are still connected to time. We're still grounded in our physical experience by that drum beat, reminding us of our roots and reminding us where we're present. And even just now, as I'm talking about this, I'm connecting it with a lot of native tribes will call trees the standing beings. And I love that idea. Just this, they just are. They just stand tall in their truth, and their roots go down deep into the depths of the earth where her heartbeat would be. And so when we are rooted like a tree, we are connected to the earth, but we're also reaching up through our crown to the divine, and how that drum beat really facilitates the connection with that heartbeat and with time and all of this. So that was, I feel like that one's still, for any Matrix fans here, still cooking my noodle a little bit, but and again, I think that's the power of stepping into these spaces where we don't have to be anything. We can open ourselves up to the power of how that divine feminine, how that giving nature of a woman's heart kind of opens up when we're in this space of connection, and just letting ourselves receive simply through the nature of being present, and how that in and of itself, that ability to be open, gives us the opportunity to have so many profound experiences in the space of 48 hours.
Yeah. So there was opportunities everywhere. Like they had a grandmother tree and a grandfather tree. They had the labyrinth and the medicine wheel. And so the land itself was held in such a sacred space by a woman named Raylan, and she had such a giving heart. Here's this woman who, her husband died a few years ago and has this property, and she's not in it to make the money. She wants to heal. She wants to heal herself, and she wants to provide a space to heal others. And so she opens up her homes and glamping tents and cabins, and like there's all these different options of like, where do you want to sleep? What kind of experience do you want to have? And be connected with the earth. And she just has this giving, supportive heart that really made the space and the place incredibly special, to just witness her oneness with the land and her openness to sharing her gifts, her blessings with others, was just really profound to see. It was kind of like she would be running around, and here's like, she's got to be in her later 60s.
I think she was 67.
Yeah.
65.
And I'm like, I want to be that when I grow up. The person who's just the steward of the land, and she gets to go to all the retreats, and she does all the workshops, and she, you know, makes sure there's enough toilet paper in the bathroom, and she makes sure that the teepee is standing upright, and, you know, like, she's definitely doing a lot of things, and it's filling her up. Her heart is shining bright. And it was just really beautiful to witness the stewards of the land too.
And I think it was such a beautiful example of when you do what fills your cup, magic follows. Like she had shared at the beginning of the retreat that when she started opening it up as a retreat, she didn't really know why she was doing it. She just knew that she loved it. She loved interacting with the land and facilitating this space and making the medicine wheels and connecting with the trees. And she was on her own healing journey, but by doing that and by following what filled her heart, she opened this beautiful retreat space. And at the beginning of the retreat, she said that it was only this year that she's realized that she's created a space where the healers can come to heal, and that that's her purpose. And it was such a beautiful reminder that our purpose will always find us if we're willing to listen to it. Like we don't have to have words for what it is our purpose is, as long as we're willing to follow that thought, to follow that feeling of this is what I'm meant to be doing. This is what fills my cup. Because, you know, not everybody could do what she does and find joy in it. But the fact that she had so much light and joy in her for the work that she did made it so special. Without her following her alignment, that experience would not have been what it was. And even just that ability to step into a space in this piece of land where it was like, the energy was just so pure. There was no need to be really on alert for your energetic protection. There was no need to be really up to date on your energetic hygiene, because it was such a sacred space that you just were. And so much of that, I think, was that her love and her joy and her commitment to following her passion and purpose created a sacred space. And it was just such a beautiful reminder that, you know, she had so many stories of, I needed this tool, and one day it just showed up on the property.
Right. I think that was phenomenal to watch her manifesting abilities that she didn't even recognize what they were when it was happening. And then looking back, she's like, oh yeah, I wanted some song bowls, so I got 7 showed up on the property because they couldn't fly home with them. And then she's got the gong, and she's got she has all of these beautiful sacred tools at her disposal that have been gifted to her just because she was in that space of ready to receive it, to share it, to utilize it for this space. And so those were the tools that Isabel and I were able to use for these healing sound baths. And they made magic, they made medicine. And it was so brilliant to witness that all we had to do, Isabel and I, all we had to do was step into our higher self, that crown chakra alignment, and go and let our intuition lead us. Like neither of us are specifically trained to do sound baths, but I know how to listen. I know how to listen to my internal guidance, my higher guidance of going, how should I play? What should I play? In what order in which do I need to play it? And going, do I want to use horse drum or buffalo drum? Or do I want to hit the gong so many times before I get there? Like, I wasn't even thinking, there wasn't this is a thought and I have to have a strategy. It was just let the vibration come forward. And the response from the group was profound. People were saying that even the leader of the retreat was like, this was the deepest I've ever gone. And that was astounding to me because she's been doing this work for probably 50 years, right? So it was such an honor to be able to play and to share with them what a sound bath can be if you just let your intuition lead it. And in doing so, we were mixing song bowls with native drum. We were mixing things that you don't necessarily see mixed together. And everyone had really profound healings. And it was amazing. It was amazing.
It was astounding. And it was one of those where I've wanted my own set of crystal samples for years and years and years, and they just haven't found me yet, and that's okay. But what I love about crystal samples is each one is really unique. They each have their own energy. And so before I get to play, I've done sound baths a couple of times. And it's always, like Christine said, such an honor to get to step into that space, because it really does feel like you are just holding space for the bowls to be able to sing. And so listening to what song is it that they want to bring forward. And so I love being able to just sit and kind of feel into which spot around me does this bowl want to occupy? Where does it want to be? And even something as simple as, on the first day, the sacral chakra bowl did not want to sing. I could not get it to sing. And so we didn't play that one. But then the second day, it was singing beautifully and the crown chakra bowl was silent. And just like this, it's just this acknowledgement of like, everything has so much magic in it, and everything has its own energy and its own wisdom and its own ability to interact with you if you're willing to open up to your intuition and just listen. And I think that was something that I'm incredibly grateful for this weekend, was to have such a sacred container in which to just listen and let yourself be carried. And so I'm hoping that as we kind of start to wrap up this conversation, that even though this was an experience that we had in a retreat center with all of these beautiful women, that maybe you're hearing something in this that you can walk away with. Maybe that's getting up in the morning to interact with the sun's medicine and call in your morning prayers and say hello to the directions. Maybe that's doing a meditation and creating a piece of art, whether that's a mask or just something that goes on your wall, or something completely different, sitting down and seeing what piece of art comes to you. Or it's going out in nature and looking for that squirrel that wants to interact with you, or that marble that's going to randomly hit your shoe, or, whatever it is, finding that magic in those little daily occurrences and being willing to just open up your heart and listen. And so I hope that this brought you guys some inspiration, that maybe some of the amazing sacred energy that we were able to interact with has come through this podcast and come through our words. We would love to hear in our Reiki Cafe community what your takeaway is. And I think our prompt for you guys this week to wrap this up is, what's one way that you're going to bring that sacred energy, that sacred nature, that sacred ceremony into your life this week? What tool are you going to use? What medicine are you going to interact with? What piece of magic are you going to really set an intention to bring into your life this week? So if you have an intention for the week, if you have a takeaway, if you know there's a tool that you would love to work with, or you want some guidance on which one is maybe calling to you most, let us know over in the Reiki Cafe community Facebook group, and let's keep this energy moving, because it's been such a beautiful experience for us, and it's such an honor to then get to bring that into this space as well.
Absolutely. Yes, I don't think I have anything to add to that. That really sums it up. Thank you all so much for listening and tuning in. We appreciate you. We see you. We honor you. And we look forward to interacting with you next time. Take care, everyone.